Okay, so a couple weeks ago we did Mike's song. Last week we did Simple, and so if you're paying attention, you might have predicted that this week we would be doing Weekapaug Groove. And what we're going to do is very quickly talk through the song structure, which is really just three chords over and over again. And then we're going to play along with the 12/6/96 version, which is an absolutely scorching type 1 jam that'll give us, with a pretty good page piano feature, so it's going to give us a fair amount to talk about as we work our way through it. So anyways, Weekapaug Groove starts out with a bass solo, so there's nothing for the piano to do there. And then when it drops in, primarily you're talking about a D, a G, and a C chord. And the rhythmic element is really important here. And there's also a little bit of variation that Page does, especially in this version that we're going to listen to. And I haven't untangled everything that he's doing there, but he's pretty loose about what he's doing because the guitar really is holding down a lot of what's happening. So the guitar's kind of doing that. And if you do the piano part, it's again, you want to spend some time with it to really get the rhythm between your two hands. So it's D, F sharp, and A. I'm just using a D octave in my left hand. And you go to G, and again, I'm doing a G octave in my left hand, and then a B, D, G, and then a C, which is a C octave in my left hand, C, E, G. And then you pop back up to the G again real quick. So rhythmically it sounds like this. And usually this is a song that's played very, very fast. So it can get a little messy. Spend a little time with it, just getting that rhythmic interplay between your two hands. That kind of stuff, that rhythmic interplay, is going to serve you really well anyways, because it's a great way to make chord progressions that may feel static or something a little more interesting, is to add some rhythm that's happening between your hands and sort of interlock those two parts. Another thing I'll point out is a way that Page varies this, where he goes up to the G, and then on the C, instead of going up to G with his left hand, he goes down to B with his left hand and puts the G chord over it, which sounds like this. And you're going to hear that in the one that we're going to do. And then, once the singing is done, the song really opens up. Again, the one we're going to do is what's called, in Phish parlance, is called a type 1 jam, which means it hews pretty close to the structure of the song. It's always recognizably Weekapaug Groove and never goes off into full freeform, go-anywhere improvisation, which is known as type 2 jamming. So we're going to be staying in D the whole time. And I've talked a bunch in recent lessons, and I'm going to talk about it again today, is that ambiguity of major and minor, because that's going to come up again, because this one goes minor in a hurry. And so once it turns minor, you're really living in that D minor pentatonic scale, D, F, G, A, C, and D. And the full chord progression kind of goes away and is sort of the feel that's substituted is that classic jam band kind of 1 to 4, which in D, your 1 chord is D, and your 4 chord is G. And so it really starts to turn into a 1 to 4 progression. So a lot of the rhythmic interplay and interjecting that C chord kind of goes by the wayside, and it simplifies itself down into a 1 to 4 a lot of the time. And we'll talk about that as it comes up in the one that we're doing. Tension and release kind of stuff. You follow the guitar, it builds up tension, oftentimes by exploiting that minor sound, and then when it resolves, you come back to that major and make it a D major chord. And when you're in the major sound, it's really a D mixolydian scale that you want to be working with, which is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C natural, and D. So if you know your scales, you know there's a C sharp in a D major scale. And mixolydian, you just flat the 7, but it's an otherwise major scale, so it's a C natural. That kind of stuff. And this is from 96 is a period when Page was using a lot of these sort of thirds going up and down. So with my hands right now, I've got a D under my thumb, and then I'm rolling up and down that scale in thirds above it. So it's like the D, F sharp, and A, D, G, B, D, A, C natural, the D, B, and the D. And you'll see, we'll mess around with those sounds in the recording. The other thing we got to talk about before we get in there is the ending, which is always a mess. It's super fast, like pop, and pops on the D. I went back to like a 1990 version and tried to hear them playing it really cleanly, and the best I can come up with, and again, they always play it super messy, so don't hold yourself to a super high standard here, but it's nice to try to sort of parse out what's going on, is going down in these descending thirds from a D, and then it runs up this scale, and I'll talk about it in a second. So it's going D, B, C, A, B, G, A, F sharp, G, E, F sharp, D, E, C, D, B. So it's from the D, B all the way down that D mixolydian scale to the next D, B. And then it runs up this scale, which is the F sharp mixolydian, or the D mixolydian, but then you're adding a C sharp on top of the C natural, so it sounds like this. Hang on. And that's the one that's the ending note. So the whole thing together is. I can't play it that fast either, so it's no wonder it's always a mess when they play it. So if you're ever wondering how the ending to Weekapaug goes, that I think that's how it's supposed to go. Usually you just end up going and end on a D. And that's it. All right, so we're going to get into this Vegas 96, 12/6/96 version on the other side. So let's do it. All right, so here we are, and it's going to be the bass solo coming into it at first. Gotcha. I don't think you'll hear the volume changing your version. That came in a little louder than I expected, so I had to tweak it. So this is bass solo. There's nothing to do until the whole thing drops in. This is, late 96, precursor to Cowfunk Phish. So they're playing with those sounds a lot, which is a lot of like minor key 1 to 4 jamming, wah pedals, clavinet, all that good stuff. There's Trey coming in with the riff, and then the whole thing comes in a second. C, G, D, G, C. It's just that over and over. That's the song. Again, you can take that bass note down to B on the second G chord. You can hear Page doing it there. There's those thirds. am, and it's gone minor already. It's a little ambiguous, so you can kind of stay away from the third. It's all clavinet stuff from Page. When you're doing that clavinet stuff, you can really get a lot of mileage out of the 1, the 7, and the minor third, which in this case is D, C, and F. So using that D minor scale, you can roll it up to a G chord. Page is kind of chunking on it's like a D, A. You can use the G a little bit too. You're staying away from the third because it's a little ambiguous as to whether it's going to settle into major or minor. But it lets you use the D, E, G, and A a lot in this. Now we're in like that Mixolydian sound. You don't want to settle into the riff too hard because then it makes it sound like it's returning to the form of the song. And then Page is bringing it back minor. You hear that? That sound of that F natural. And this is when Trey had his little percussion kit. So Page was taking more lead stuff. Thirds and sort of just pages of. It's using D minor riffing of that A flat up to A, G rolling it up, and then landing on the C. I'm moving those thirds around above the D. Again. That's the A and the C down to the G and the B. So you can float up and down that D minor pentatonic scale and really inhabit stuff like this. Here comes Trey, and it's coming back to that major sound. And this is that D major to G sort of vibe. But you can also lay in the minor pentatonic scale stuff. It all kind of works and it keeps it interesting. So now you're going like D, G, floating along with the major sound Trey is putting out. It's that Mixolydian. Stuff interesting. You move your voicings around, and again you don't just play a D chord. You can borrow notes from the rest of the scale, the 7, all that stuff. And there's that. This one's so good. That pause, that's an artifact of playing together for a really long time, like these guys have. It's probably a joke from band practice that got out of hand and made its way into the show. I don't think those are cued all that strictly. There's another one coming. Then when you're back in the guitar, you're really hitting those D and the G chord. There's a sign to go minor again. You hear that like funky riffing. minor down to G. And to get that funk, you can really use just like the 7th and the 3rd together. So I'm using the C and the F. And then you just take the C down to B, and so now you have what's implied as a G major chord with the B and the F as the 7th. That's really helpful for doing like funky vamping and like sparse funky vamping. And so Paige is on the clav, Trey's playing funky D minor. You can do D minor pentatonic. This high D note. Don't be too afraid of the E as your second. If you're in that pentatonic, you don't have to be like completely committed. You can borrow notes from the Mixolydian scale of the E and the B. Now we're back to that major sound. You're going to D major to G major again. And when you're building major like this, you can just kind of pound the chords and vert them up. And you can make it sound more triumphant by going higher on the piano. Really just kind of parked on D right now as it resolves. Trey is riffing on the G, A, C, D. Now we're back in the song. It's always helpful to pick apart what guitarists are doing. Even if you don't play it exactly, it really helps to know what it is because it can help you figure out what scales you should be using or what notes. We're back to that D, G, C, G riff. Just kind of octaving around on the D minor scale. Right there. And now since they're singing again, you really want to come back to the form. And we're going to hit that messy ending in a second. It's one of those songs that just makes me really happy. Close enough. And this one doesn't even have the big D that you would land on to end it, like this guy. But you just had the E natural, the 9th, to give it that ending sound. So that's it. 12/6/96 Weekapaug. There's really not a ton that's technical going on. That one is really about jamming and how to take something simple, which is a 3-chord song that often finds itself as a 2 or 1 chord jam section, and to keep it interesting, to keep it moving, to keep it evolving, to use different sounds in major and minor, so that it's not too static. Because if you've been doing the jam band thing for a while or trying to jam with your friends, it can be really easy to get stuck and in these spots where it's like, all right, we've been playing the same chord progression, and is anyone going to do anything with it, or can we get out of it? Can we end it? And so it's great to practice techniques to keep motion, keep forward momentum, and a sense of progression as you're jamming and improvising. Where do you go from, maybe taking a major song, minor, and then increasing tension and landing on a triumphant major section, or coming back to the major feel triumphantly later on down the line, or just giving it that sense where it's shifting and moving forward. And so that's what I'm really hoping to get at and to help you get at and understand. So as always, hit me up in the comments. Let me know if I got anything wrong, or if you play it differently. I'd love to hear how you play it. This is just sort of how my ear comes at these songs, so I don't pretend to know everything. And so I hope it's helpful. I hope you're practicing and learning. And I'll see you at the next one. Cheers.